All right, let's get right into it.
Sometimes the biggest shifts in global politics don't start with some big treaty or a huge press conference. Nope. Sometimes they start with something much, much smaller. Today, we're going to unpack a single diplomatic gesture, a framed photo, to really understand the incredibly complex and, recently strained relationship between the US and India.
And it all kicks off with just these 6 words. Think about it. This is a personal, handwritten note from one of the world's most powerful leaders to another. This is not just some casual compliment. In the high-stakes world of diplomacy, every single word, every gesture is calculated. So what's really being said here?
So picture this. The U.S. ambassador-designate, Sergio Gor, has a meeting with Prime Minister Modi, and he doesn't show up empty-handed. He delivers a framed picture from a meeting between Modi and President Trump from earlier in the year, and it's signed with that very personal message. Now, it's a classic diplomatic move for sure, but given how tense things have been, this one gesture got everyone talking.
And that really brings us to the central question we're digging into today. Is this just a friendly gesture? A piece of diplomatic housekeeping? Or could this photo actually signal a genuine turning point in a relationship that's been under some serious stress? Let's break it down.
Okay, so before we can really appreciate a potential thaw, we've got to talk about the freeze that came before it. Because make no mistake, the partnership between Washington and New Delhi has been on some pretty shaky ground lately. To really get the significance of that photo, we have to look back at just how icy things had become.
And man, it has really been a roller coaster. You go from these huge public displays of friendship, like the Howdy Modi and Namaste Trump rallies during Trump's first term, to a much, much rockier situation after he returned to office. Modi makes a high-profile visit to D.C., and then just a few months later, wham, new U.S. tariffs hit hard. And that leads us right up to this photo being delivered.
And the tension wasn't just about one thing, it was really coming from all sides. We saw major tariffs slapped on Indian products, extra duties specifically targeting India's purchase of Russian oil, and big changes to H-1B visa policies that directly hit Indian professionals. And all of this was happening alongside some very sharp, very pointed language from U.S. officials.
And if you want to put a number on that pressure, 50%. The Trump administration jacked up tariffs on some Indian goods to that staggering level. India's reaction was fast and it was clear. They called the move unfair, unjustified, and unreasonable. So this wasn't just some minor trade spat. It was a full-blown economic confrontation.
And this chart, this kind of gets to the heart of the motivation behind the tension. The total trade between the two is huge. We're talking $186 billion. But for the Trump administration, the number that really jumps out is that $41 billion surplus in India's favor. Tackling trade deficits has always been a key part of Trump's policy, and that made India a pretty clear target.
But, just when it seemed like things were about to hit a breaking point, the signals started to change. So let's look at the other side of the story now and see how recent events, including our signed photo, are starting to paint a very different and, frankly, much warmer picture.
And this is the million-dollar question, right? Is this photo just a one-off, an outlier, or is it a piece of a much bigger puzzle? Are we actually seeing a deliberate effort from both sides to kind of mend fences and hit the reset button on this whole relationship?
Well, when you start connecting the dots, a pattern really does start to emerge. It's not just the photo. The two leaders have been on the phone. In fact, President Trump was the first world leader to call Prime Minister Modi for his 75th birthday. And maybe most importantly, those trade talks that were completely stalled, they're back on.
And you can literally hear the difference in the language being used. It's like night and day. We've gone from sharp jibes to a conciliatory tone, from India calling U.S. actions unfair to President Trump calling Prime Minister Modi a great friend. The whole vibe has shifted from confrontation to, cautious optimism.
And hey, this isn't just a one-way street. After his meeting with the ambassador-designate, Prime Minister Modi himself went on social media to publicly say how confident he was about the partnership's future. That's about as clear a signal as you can get from the very top of the Indian government that they're ready to move forward.
Okay, so here's where the rubber meets the road. All these gestures, the warm words, the friendly phone calls, are they actually going to translate into real policy changes? Because symbolism is great, but at the end of the day, substance is what really counts. And it turns out there's a huge test of this renewed friendship just around the corner.
Right now, pretty much the entire diplomatic world is watching one event, the upcoming Quad Leaders Summit. India is hosting, which puts them in the driver's seat. And the single biggest question hanging over the whole thing is whether or not President Trump is actually going to attend.
Let's just break down the drama here for a second. Prime Minister Modi sent the invitation months ago, but as the tariffs and tensions got worse, pretty much everyone thought there's no way he's going. But now, with this thaw, the U.S. ambassador-designate is dropping hints that, yeah, the president might just make the trip after all. And if he does attend, that would be the single clearest signal you could get that this partnership is truly back on track.
And just for a quick refresher, the Quad isn't some casual get-together. It's a major strategic security dialogue between four big democracies: Australia, India, Japan, and the United States. For a U.S. president to skip it, especially when a key partner like India is hosting, would be a huge statement. And that's exactly why his potential attendance is such a massive deal.
So as we wrap this up, what's the main thing you should take away? It's this. In the high-stakes world of international relations, symbolism matters. A lot. A handwritten note, a birthday phone call, a positive public statement. These things might seem small, but they are incredibly powerful tools. They're the signals that can pave the way for real, actual change.
And that leaves us with one final question to chew on. Are we watching the beginning of a genuine thaw in a critical global partnership, one that's built on a real shift in policy? Or are we just seeing some masterful diplomacy at play, a temporary warming of relations before the next storm? The answer, I think, will become very clear at that Quad summit.